Oh, got it. It's funny how you have to select that. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Scarlett Hoey with NEMA, joined by my colleagues Heather Riggs and Jennifer Wilson, and our amazing facilitators, Matt Kirkman and Paul Fenton of our Environmental Community of Practice. Virtual spaces cannot replace the lands that sustain and empower us. I'm here in Worcester, Massachusetts, homelands of the Nipmuc Nation people and their allied tribes, past and present. NEMA recognizes that our organization and those of our members were founded within a colonizing society, which continues the exclusions and erasures of many Indigenous peoples throughout New England and beyond. You can use the Indigenous peoples land map to find where you're zooming in from or where your museum is located. I'm going to drop it here in the chat. Hold on, I'll drop it here in the chat in 1 second, and I'm going to turn it over to Paul and Matt. Thanks.
Thanks, Scarlett. Thanks for coming, everybody. Welcome to, I think this is meeting number 4 of the Environmental and Climate Community Practice. And we're really excited to have Discovery Museum CEO Neil Gordon. I'm going to turn the mic over to him in just a second. A couple of quick housekeeping things are that please join us August 3rd at 3:00 p.m. Put that in your calendar. You'll obviously get reminders from NEMA about that, but that will be our next meeting. And then I'm also going to put in the chat our spreadsheet that we're using to keep track of folks who are interested in making sure that they are up to speed on everything that we're doing. I tend to send out reminder emails, even though they're in the NEMA emails as well. So I'm going to drop that in the chat. You can just add your name and your contact information into the spreadsheet if you want to keep up to date with everything that we're working on. So I think without further ado, we'll turn it over to Neil. Neil Gordon, CEO of Discovery Museum. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. We'll see what happens now you've turned it over to me. Hopefully we'll talk about something. It's nice to do this. It's nice to see that there are folks throughout the NEMA community that are interested in this topic. I think it's really important for our field overall. I'm always thrilled to talk about what we're up to and learn about what others are up to and encourage more people in the field. Nice to see a few faces on the screen that I've crossed paths with over the years. So if you are one of those people, nice to see you. With that, Paul gave me the assignment of sort of telling the story of the Discovery Museum's engagement in sort of environmental education and sustainability for the organization. I'm probably going to focus more on the sort of organizational sustainability than the education piece, because if we were going to let anybody talk about that, it would be Paul and not me. Hopefully this will be okay. I would encourage you to interrupt me as I go through my long drawn out monologue here. And if you have questions, shout them out or put them, don't put them in the chat, because that would require me to click the button, and then I get distracted and lose where I am. So I am going to do that awful share a screen thing so that I can walk you through some points. That mostly keeps me on target, and hopefully works out. So
hey, Neil, let's just say that if people have a question, use the raise hand feature, which is down in the reactions tab at the bottom of the screen, and sure. I'll look for those raised hands.
That would be terrific, and then you can scream. So in the share a screen thing, is that actually working now? Are you guys all seeing my little pictures? Good. And I'll just have to figure out how to manipulate that. Super. So I'm sure most of you already know the Discovery Museum, so I will not belabor the fact that we are a 41-year-old children's museum, science museum in Acton, Massachusetts. In our current now post-pandemic year, we will probably serve close to 250,000 people about 200,000 of those on site and about 50,000 out in schools with our traveling science workshop program that brings elementary school science right into the classroom. That makes us the 14th or 15th largest museum in Massachusetts. We have a little over a $3 million operating budget, thanks to some miracles that I hope last. The Discovery Museum started out as a small children's museum, added science 5 years into our existence by building a second building on our campus that focused on science. And then about 10 or 12 years ago, we started to focus on what we could do with our outdoors, and wound up building a whole new outdoor play area called Discovery Woods, and changed our tagline to science, nature, and play, emphasizing the sort of three content areas. Fundamentally, however, we are really about helping to prepare kids to be successful and leaders in the future, and to resolve, help them resolve all of the grinding issues that we are leaving on their plates. Blessed group, nice group that we were. So where does the Discovery Museum come from on the issue of sustainability? And there were really two quotes that I like to use here, or two thoughts that I like to use. One's a quote. One is from W.E.B. Du Bois, who talked about the fact that children learn more from what you are than what you teach. So at our core, we are trying to be the organization that we want kids to grow up to want to mimic, as it relates to sustainability, and hopefully on a whole lot of other topics as well. But I think that's a really a kind of critical issue. If we're going to talk about sustainability, we've got to walk the talk, be what we're talking about. And then the other is more about the attitude that we need to take, and that's one about seeing solutions and actions and hope. Hope is really a targeted way of seeing the future and taking steps to that future. So we're trying to be live what we're trying to be on sustainability, and do that in a way that is hopefully engenders hope about the future, not fear about the future. Let's see if we can work our way through these slides here. Oh, there we go. So, organizationally in 2007, the museum first made this commitment to environmental sustainability, produced a master plan that included the concept of the Environmental Discovery Museum, that would have been, the sibling to the Children's Discovery Museum, the Science Discovery Museum. And we slowly actually got rid of the notion of a separate building and a separate facility, and said, that notion of outdoor and environmental education was our opportunity to take advantage of the 4.5 acres that we had. And we hired our first outdoor and environmental educator in 2015. We opened Discovery Woods, which is, just shy of an acre, and is in this picture here of outdoor nature-based play that is sort of anchored by a 500 square foot tree house. The tree house and Discovery Woods were built to be fully accessible, so not path-wise and activity-wise, accessibility was crucial. We opened that in 2016 with a very simple motto that we needed to get every kid outside to play every day. And that was sort of our watchword. And as I mentioned, we changed our tagline to include nature as well. We try to use the fact that we are uniquely situated with our 4.5 acres immediately adjacent to 180 acres of town-owned conservation land to encourage nature-based activities. So, you know, that's a quick overview, if you will, of sort of the visitor experience as it relates to the environment. But now I want to talk mostly about our sustainability plan for the organization and what we're trying to do in that regard. So, you know, a couple of years ago, we realized that if we were going to live out the Du Bois notion of being what we wanted kids to be, we really needed to create a plan. And we did some work. Many of you have, you know, probably seen lots of different opportunities of how to create sustainability plans. We latched onto this framework for a sustainability plan that came to us and it's probably explained in our sustainability plan, which is available on our website. But it created a framework for us that we then began to fill in action. So the framework for our plan included a commitment to renewable power, a commitment to understanding and reducing our greenhouse emissions, a commitment to understanding our materials consumption and reducing those, a commitment to reducing the impact of transportation, impact of water usage, to be very public about this, to be committed to the education component of this, and to invest what limited amount of funds we have in a portfolio that reflected environmental concerns. So that was the framework. And I would posit to all of you, don't go, if you're thinking about making a sustainability plan, don't go spending a lot of time looking for examples. This is a really good example. It's a good framework. You know, you can argue and pick and choose words forever, but if you're thinking about a sustainability plan for your organization, this is a pretty good framework. We then took our plan, and within each of those elements of the plan, created, you know, key action steps. And in fact, our plan has 29 action steps. And if you've looked at it on our website, you can see them all articulated. The plan itself is about, I don't know, 8 or 10 pages long, and you know, includes you know, those action steps and a set of goals that we're trying to achieve. I would one question that people sort of get hung up a lot on the creation of something like a plan like this is, doesn't it take lots of analysis and lots of consultants and lots of resources? Our plan was me, whoever else was on staff who were interested, and an intern from the University of Southern New Hampshire who needed, you know, some internship hours to finish off her program. You know, that's all we needed. And we recognized that our plan was not perfect, but, you know, the old expression, the perfect is the enemy of the good. Don't agonize. You know, one thing that you might criticize, if you look at our plan and look at the greenhouse gas inventory, it's an imperfect mix of measures of our greenhouse gas emissions. Some of them are primary sources from the museum. Some of them are visitors. You know, purists would quibble with what we've done there. But they were things that were important to us and we could measure them, and they're things we want to work on. So I don't really care if somebody who's a perfectionist wants to quibble with me. Those are the things we're working on, and we're working on reducing them. And if we do, that's a good thing. And if we don't, that's a bad thing. But the fact that they might be not the most perfect measures is really not the issue. It's, have you tried to measure it? Have you set goals, and are you working on them? That's the measure. So like I say, there are 29 of these, and I think every plan has to have exactly 29. You know, 28 doesn't work, 30 is too many. 29 is the perfect number. So obviously I'm kidding. And I've gone through this. The key thing for us was pick some things to work on and get started. And the key to getting started for us, and you're seeing some of the things that we've already accomplished with composting and getting kids outdoors and moving all of our landscape equipment to battery powered electric things, getting our visitors to recycle, a lot of things that works because of this. And this is a cross-functional sustainability team. In that picture, there are people who run our school outreach program, our public program, our visitor services, our facilities, our exhibits, our marketing, and our fundraising, right? So when I talk cross-functional, there isn't a part of our museum that isn't represented on our sustainability team, because ultimately sustainability will touch every piece of what you do. And by getting a group of people together focused on working on the delivery on your plan, having those 29 action steps to start from, holding each other mutually accountable, but more importantly, generating, new ideas and new approaches to reaching the goals that we set out in our plan. That's what that group accomplishes. We've been meeting every month now for, I think, about a year and a half. And frankly, I think we're working on more things that weren't originally in the plan than we are working on things that were originally in the plan. It's just a group that got it moving and is kind of paramount for instilling the culture in the organization that sustainability is something that we worry about. So it comes up now in lots of different ways. We're talking last week, maybe this week, I don't know. I'm confused about regrowing our birthday party business. And some of you have birthday parties or similar kinds of things at your museum. And something we had never touched on in our plan was, wow, when kids have those birthday parties, they generate an enormous amount of trash. And it's all plastic and yada, yada, yada. And enormous amounts of leftover cake, but that's a different issue. And so it got us thinking about, should we have, policies on the materials that people can use in their birthday parties? Should they all we provide them and they be compostable? Should we have reusable materials? Should we have a, pack it in, pack it out policy? And it's got us thinking about a whole set of topics related to a piece of our business that wasn't even in the initial plan, because we've instilled a little bit of sustainability into the culture, which is ultimately what you really want to achieve and do. Oops, I clicked myself too forward. So one thing I suspect you might wanted me to talk about was, what's the most visible thing that we've done so far? This is an aerial photograph of the Discovery Museum from last fall. It's a spectacular picture, just because it was taken in almost peak foliage season. So the museum building is sort of in the upper right-hand corner of that picture, and those solar panels are canopies covering our parking lot, and there are a little over 800 panels out there producing 326 kilowatts or whatever watts it is, a lot of watts every. That's their production, and it is the most visible thing we've done so far. I don't know that it's the most important, but it is the most visible. And those solar panels, are an opportunity for us to sort of get people thinking about what we're doing. The other beauty of that installation is it is remarkably financially sound. So not only is the museum now 100% solar electric, but we're actually generating positive cash flow out of those panels. And it happened because not only are we producing 100% of the electricity that we need to operate on the museum, but we are overproducing such that 50% of the energy we produce is resold to other nonprofits through the state's community solar program. All of those nonprofits get that electricity at a discount. So it's 10% less than they would be paying to their buddies at Eversource. So they're getting a deal. They're getting to be renewable. We're getting positive cash flow, and we're demonstrating sustainable renewable energy to our visitors. The pillar of that, for those who are interested in pursuing it, is there are 4 sort of financial incentives there. You have money that you save on not buying your electricity from your utility. There are federal tax credits, which now, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, that nonprofits can get a credit for those. Used to be that a federal tax credit was useless to those of us who didn't have a federal tax liability. But now, in fact, you can get a credit. That credit is, I didn't mention, 30% of the cost of your system. So in our case, we spent $1 million on those solar panels. It would have been a $300,000 immediate windfall against that. You start talking about a 30% discount on the cost of this, and it becomes economic very fast. I mentioned that we are selling the excess energy, and Massachusetts has a remarkably generous program of credits, cash credits for people producing excess solar energy called smart credits. And it's an incredibly generous program. We were also, because we did this in the middle of the pandemic, able to borrow the money to build those panels at pretty favorable rates. But we are repaying this 20 or 25-year loan and generating excess cash every year now through the solar installation. So it's about as many wins as you could put in one thing. I would encourage people to take a look at it. If you're interested in doing it, and you're in Massachusetts, I would say, I have some great consultants for you to work with. You could contact me directly. I would say I would never take on a project like this by myself. You really need help to understand the economics, the siting issues, the procurement issues, the installation issues, the local licensing and permitting, and the interface with the state and with the utility. It is a not insignificant undertaking that you probably, as all of us are amateurs who would ever do it once, not want to take on by yourself. Right? You're seeing the picture, right? So so far we're hitting our production goals, our cash flow goals, and we are inspiring others, which has been really important. I take a couple of calls a month from other people who are interested in this topic. So we're pretty excited about where that is taken. One other thing that we're doing around sustainability that's a little different. I mentioned we did a greenhouse gas inventory of our transportation emissions. And you think about it as a visitor destination, you know, with 200,000 people coming here every year, we have somewhere between 50 and 75,000 vehicles coming in and out of this property every year. And when you do a greenhouse gas inventory, if you count that, it will be your single largest source of greenhouse emissions. And as in our case, as a suburban children's museum, not located anywhere arguably near any kind of public transportation or population centers, we are not taking people's cars away from them. They are not coming here by any different mode. So what's our alternative? Well, our alternative was to go the carbon offset route. We now include in the price of our membership a $1 fee for that membership that we use to buy carbon offsets that offsets all the vehicle miles of our members coming to and from the museum. It's a program that we've purchased through a national organization that, you know, 6 Ways to Sunday certifies the validity of it. You can read about it on our website. Our current in-place offset is used to reduce the methane emissions of a landfill in Florida. We're about to switch to some other projects, but we're pretty excited about the fact that we've instituted this carbon offset for our members, and we're about to do it for our visitors. We are also already doing it for the miles that staff do driving to and from the museum, and we're about to add it for our traveling science workshop teachers who are driving all over the state delivering science things. You know, as far as we've been able to tell, we think there were a couple of other museums interested in this, but I think we might be the only museum currently running an offset program for its transportation emissions. I would encourage you to take a look at this, and offline I would also be happy to give you a lot more details of how to make it happen. Paul has probably already talked to you about this, but you know, fundamentally our audience is very young, and so building the next generation of environmental stewards for us is about connecting kids with nature at a really early age, and then jumping all over their parents with the harder stuff about sustainability and renewables and recycling and all of that. I think a lot depends on your audience, on how you pitch your education piece. Our education is pitched to be empowering, not scolding. I think is not fear mongering. And I think with that, actually, what else are we working on? The last piece I'll talk about from an educational point of view, we've not really yet taken full advantage of the solar panels, and we are working, and I would put working in kind of quotes at this point, on trying to develop a couple of exhibit components that would really talk about both solar energy specifically and solar panels specifically, and then more generally about the possibilities for renewable energy as part of everybody's day-to-day life, and to do those in ways that are consistent with our educational approach, which is hands-on, interactive, low-tech, and trying to meet all of those goals and develop something that actually gives kids a kind of a concept about how a solar panel works is kind of fun. The example you see there is a prototype on the left of a solar panel, much as it doesn't even look like a solar panel, but You just have to imagine that those are electrons and photons floating around there, and that Trevor there is the sun. But anyway, so I think that's, about as much time as I should take explaining all this. I'm going to stop sharing and see whether anybody had any thoughts, questions, comments, or, want to express disappointment. Kathy out there. Come on, Kathy, you must have a question for me.
Oh, I know. I'm thinking lots of things. This is great. I've been hearing little bits and pieces over the time, and so it's great to see it all put together, and really impressed with how you all have put this forefront. And I think I'm partly thinking we're working on strategic planning here at Lippert House, and we're a much smaller institution, but just curious how you dovetailed this with your strategic planning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a strategic plan in place that one of the pillars of which is sustainability, but it wasn't really articulated very well or very much detail. So we really consider the sustainability plan as an adjunct to our strategic plan. And you think about it, it already was pieced because it was a pillar. The plan itself is more, it's just detail. And it really serves as an organizing tool. It's a reason for us to have a team. It's a reason for the team to get together every month. And it's a set of actions for us to follow. One of the things that I didn't mention, we have an external group of sustainability professionals who we're really only using in a reactionary kind of way. They reviewed our first annual report on our sustainability plan. We have an intern right now doing a second annual report, which this group of 7 professionals will review for us. They had a lot of good insight last year, and we incorporated a bunch of their thoughts into that. But it also, having an annual report helps us fulfill one of our goals of our plan, which was to be accountable and publicly accountable. So hopefully our report that I did the report last year, it was kind of remarkably half-assed. But hopefully this year's report will be a little more professional, and we'll circulate it even more. But I think that accountability piece, I should have mentioned, I think is really kind of crucial. You pay attention to the things that people hold you responsible for.
And your board has been on board with this level of commitment to this work?
Yeah, I can tell you they had their own little task force on solar, and like they got so excited about it. I would say that and they've been reasonably supportive of us being out there on the advocacy issues around this, which we've mostly done through our adult speaker series. They have kind of drawn the line on local political issues. The town of Acton has tried a couple of times to pass, various little town bylaws that address, I think one of them was no more fossil fuel powered buildings or something. It was an amendment to the building code. The board, while thinking that they were probably right, kind of drew a line at, we don't really know much about building codes, and that's sort of not our expertise. So maybe we really shouldn't have an opinion on that. And I was fine with that. I mean, it was not a do or die kind of issue. But yeah, they've been very supportive across the board on this. And it's hard not to be, because we're doing the right thing. It's educationally sound, and it's been financially positive for us in terms of energy use. You know, I think as we're getting into more waste management issues and things, I think we're finding ways to spend money that, you know, but they're all pretty at the margin. I mean, you know, somebody we spent, Paul will remember, we spent more hours than I'd like to think about talking about trash bags. And you know, when you get right down to it, you know, sure, the bag you want might cost twice as much as the bag you're using now, but you're talking a base of hundreds of dollars. So like if you go from $500 to $1,000, like who the hell cares? Right? I mean, it sort of doesn't make any sense. So I emphasize again, these sort of, you know, it's not really rocket science. You know, people, you know, like me can do it.
Maureen, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Maureen Hennessy. I'm at the Clark Art Institute out in Williamstown. I hear exactly what you're saying about emissions and visitors.
Yeah.
Since we have nothing in the way of mass transit or very little. But we are in the process of doing this. I have a million questions, but here, this one may be kind of backwards, but what did you decide not to include in your plan? Because I think one of the biggest challenges our group right now is facing is it's sort of so overwhelming that we keep getting bogged down in there's so much that we haven't actually put pen to paper on anything yet. So it's like, how did you say, okay, these are the big, you know, there's debates about, do we do the low hanging fruit first? Do we go for the, you know, the big ones? So I'm just curious as to how you decided what. I've downloaded your plan. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to read it. What did you
Right.
decide not to do? And maybe part of that is there a time frame? Is this like a 5-year plan or
Yeah. So
until we get it done? So thanks.
lot of good questions there. You know, I think it's one of the advantages of going into this not terribly knowledgeable is that maybe you don't know what all the things are that you're not doing that you forgot to put in the plan. You know, for us, you know, we started off with a pretty simple greenhouse gas inventory tool. And so we kind of focused on the things that it counted, which were, you know, building electricity emissions, direct heat source emissions. And you know, that was a key piece. You know, we decided that we wanted to be carbon neutral by 2024 or 25, I forget which, not really understanding exactly what carbon neutral meant. And we got pretty hung up on, you know, net zero and carbon neutral and, you know, what all those terms mean. We have in our plan some things that go to building systems, like heating and cooling systems that because we had just got done with a major expansion are in the plan, but we won't really get to for a couple of more years just because, you know, it's not the cycle for us to do a major capital project other than the solar panels. You know, our approach to waste and waste streams has been really incremental. It's a lot of it has been Paul saying, you know, we should do this, we should do that. We didn't have a very detailed plan up front around waste, largely because that's was one of the tougher things for us to think about how to measure. You know, you can't really weigh your dumpster. It's a challenging one, and it's all.
I will just say we have a member of our team who thinks we should be weighing the dumpster. That's kind of how in the weeds we're getting here. So
Right. Yeah, get them excited about doing a waste audit. That'll keep them busy. Yeah, it's tough that I guess I would be a believer in low hanging fruit, right? Because, particularly if you put together a team, then the team gets some early successes, and then the team starts thinking of other things to do. So, low hanging fruit, put together a team and get started, and recognize that it's a living document, not well, that wasn't in the plan, we're not going to do that. I mean, of course you're going to do it if it makes sense. So yeah, I mean, when you take a look at ours, you'll see that it doesn't get into a lot of detail, but there's a lot of meat there. Paul, you have any reactions to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this to some of the folks in the room that, like, I think that one of the things that resonates the most for me is Neil's point about, as you have the meetings, as you talk about other things, as different people join the group, different things come up. And I think, maybe we're fortunate that I think our group is pretty good at prioritizing and also not trying to do all the things all at once, because we know that we can't. So, we've carved out, I don't know, every meeting we sort of like have a couple of assignments that we walk away with and we try to make progress on. And sometimes a month goes by and no progress is made and nobody gets mad about it. And we kind of just keep chipping away at it. Like we've really, like, I don't know, Neil's really made this part of our culture, and it's just kind of always something that's part of the work. So
one thing that I didn't talk about, that we've started to talk about a little bit more internally, is making our commitment to sustainability much more visible and overt for our visitors. Paul and the team came up with a great idea around waste streams. So we have, a whole bunch of outdoor picnic tables, and we've developed a sort of magnetic placemat, if you will, for those tables that talks about composting and trash and waste reduction. But we don't have anywhere when you walk in the museum a statement of our commitment to sustainability, and we should have that. We're missing a big opportunity on that. It's prominent, I think, on our website, but I don't think it's prominent to our visitors, and I would encourage to do that. I will say on the having a team and working on it, there is an important part of, leadership of the institution needs to be committed, because everybody else in the institution is going to get behind it. And, you don't want people running the organization to become the roadblock. So, when I show up at one of those sustainability team meetings, I know I got to be prepared to say yes, right? And if you're not really ready to say yes or try it or go for it, or yeah, we can find the money for it, then you're going to frustrate the culture. So be prepared if you start changing the culture, that you've got to support that culture. Because otherwise, it's revolution. I don't know what that looks like. I'm looking forward to getting out there, by the way, to see the Monk exhibit. I bet it's terrific.
It's a great show. We've been very lucky. And we have also opening next week a contemporary show called Humane Ecology. One of the artists has developed a garden based on the indigenous plantings that were done in the area by the Stockbridge Mohican who occupied this land. So that opens on July 16th. So, but let me know if you're coming. Would love to welcome you.
Yeah, I would love to. We're just waiting for the hotel rates to go down. We're waiting for the fall.
Marnie, do you want to jump in? And then we have one other question in the chat from Emily. We can try to get that one too.
Or try to lower my hand. Thank you so much, Neil, for this presentation. This is really, really inspiring. I'm from RISD in Providence. I'm at the RISD Museum. We've been doing a lot of work in sustainability, but every single time I see presentations like this, it always brings up more things like, oh, I need to do that. Oh, I need to gotta figure out what we're doing. I have a question about the travel credits, like the carbon offset. Was it hard to get staff on board with that? Is it volunteer? Are people like visitors cool with that? Like how is that program working for you?
Okay, so the real full implementation of it really happened. The most we've done is with members, and that's been in place for over a year. And so we on our membership now, you know, if you buy a family membership, it's $171, and the $1 is the offset, and it's an opt-out. So you can choose to not pay the $1 if you don't believe that whatever. We have 4,000 members, all of whom have now renewed or bought. We've had like 6 people in a year and a half opt out, and you know, it's a relatively insignificant piece of money, but it's also pretty clear because it's that weird dollar hanging out on the end of our membership, and we tell all the members as part of their membership that that's what they're buying into. So we've not had any pushback on that. We purchase the offsets for staff. We don't ask staff to pay for that. So presumably nobody is objecting to that. I haven't frankly asked anybody. The one we haven't rolled out yet is for visitors. And it's a little trickier than the member one to figure out exactly how we're going to implement it. And you can imagine the conversations that could happen at your admissions desk over it. So, you know, we're kind of trying to time the rollout of it with implementation of online ticketing. And so we start to minimize the amount of conversation that happens around it. It's going to be in the same sort of like maybe $1 a visit kind of amount. You know, we have a group of visitors that are price sensitive and a lot of visitors who are not. So I suspect there won't be any controversy. I don't, you know, it hasn't really been a big deal. I think people get more hung up on the 2 issues from my colleagues out there in the field were just the logistics of doing it. Like how do you figure out, how do you calculate it, and concern about greenwashing. That you know, you got to feel really confident that the project that you're purchasing offsets for is legitimate and valid, and you know, that's why we're working with Sarah Sutton. Many of you might know Sarah used to be in New England, is now on the West Coast. Environment Culture Partners. Sarah and her team have been helping us find folks who are you know, legitimate vendors of carbon offsets.
Who is Sarah with? Because Sustainable Museums website doesn't
Yeah.
do anything when I Google it.
Museums. Yeah, and then she's got a little organization too called Environment Culture Partners, I think it's called.
Yeah,
ECP.
ECP.
It's Sarah and Stephanie Shapiro and Danielle, I can't remember Danielle's last
Scarlett, do you
name.
have the direct
We-
link to her
Yeah.
website?
Yeah,
Yeah, hold on, let me grab it.
yeah, if
Yeah,
you,
because sustainablemuseums.net comes up private. So
Yeah, no, she switched out to the new organization a couple years ago. So that's the work she's
Okay.
been doing, and we've been working with her for the IMLS grant as well.
thanks.
yeah, I would love it if somebody else wanted to get on board on the carbon offset thing. Because our original intention was to use us as a pilot and, you know, build the infrastructure out and then make it possible for people to join in to that program. And it, unfortunately, the company that we worked with the first year had a big staffing turnover, and so we've had to go find new folks, and so that's set us back a little bit. It is a squirrely world out there in the offsets. Was there another question? You said there was one in the chat. Paul?
Emily had a question, but it was pretty much, what has been the reaction from members to the offset credit? So I think you kind of covered it.
Yeah, I mean, nobody has sent me a note that says really great idea, but the fact that they haven't objected is as good as we can do. So, you know, hopefully today my goal was to convince everybody that there's a lot that you can do and just get started. Maureen, we're expecting the Clark to do big things now with this, so. We're sort of at the hour. Is that what your normal meeting time is?
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, if there are no, last questions for Neil, I think we can say goodbye. And again, hope everyone can join us next month on the 3rd at 3 o'clock. Easy to remember. It's just 2 3s. I'll pause. Any last questions?
I'll put a soft plug for some really exciting conference sessions on sustainability at the upcoming NEMA conference. So check out NEMAnet.org for our full list of calendar events, and the program book will be out in a couple months, but just know that we have some really exciting programming planned around sustainability.
Yeah,
And
we're doing a session on the solar project with the folks Brett from Resident Energy, who helped us put it together. So if you're really interested in solar, we'll have a lot of details that day.
And I'll just say that the community of practice has gotten into a groove of doing a guest speaker like we had today, a provocateur, and then the following month we do a kind of think tank amongst the membership. So our next meeting on the 3rd will be more a work session, and you can bring your own ideas to the table. So
Sounds good.
You all. Thank you, Neil.
Thanks.
so much.
Matt, do you
Thank you.
mind?
Nice seeing you all.
Matt, can you stay on a second later?
Sure.